Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 3-Day Leadership Challenge. I am your host, Shakita Battle. I'm going to give everyone a minute to come in. I'm super excited. Okay, for today's live. Just waiting on people to come in. Okay. This is the Unshakable You. I am today's host, Shakita Battle, and I wanted to welcome you to the 3-Day Leadership Challenge. Day 1, Internal Narrative. I wrote a poem that's called Internal Narrative, and I wanted to just speak that first as my introduction as we wait on everyone to come. This is the Unshakable You 3-Day Leadership Challenge, and I'm your host, Shakita Battle. Internal Narrative, the poem. Internal narrative, internal dialogue, shaping the way we see the world, shaping what you say when you look in the mirror. You say, I see me, but is it really you that you really see? Or is it the you someone said you were? Or is it the you that you used to be? Which you do you see? When unexamined, the negatives stay unmoved. Survival skills outdated and growth unabated. Time to make a change, or at least time to see if you really changed. It's time to stop the tantrum, the ways that you were, and exchange it for the mature, unashamed, for the real you, a real you that you can say, I see me now. Welcome again to the Unshakable You. This is day 1 of the 3-day challenge. Today we answer the question of what's holding you back. Psychology Today says that internal dialogue affects language development. Now, I thought language development was mimicking that what someone has said. I thought it was just that mimicking process that affected development. But now I'm beginning to understand it as it's the way we see ourselves. We internalize language to look like the person and sound like the person teaching us to speak. So it looks like and sounds like we're trying to look like and sound like that person who's teaching us. We may even accept that we are just like that person. We might think that, hey, I'm no different than that person I'm listening to. That same article says that inner dialogue also affects our memory and the way we see problems or solve problems. So we can safely say that the internal narrative affects our cognitive functions. Now, if you want that article, text me or email me at success@bvision.com, and I'll send you the link to the article by Psychology Today. Now, we were saying that we were saying that the internal narrative affects our cognitive functions. Before we explore more on that topic, I'm going to take a minute out and truly let you know who's speaking tonight. My name is Shakita Battle, and I am the founder and CEO of Be Vision. We help leaders to streamline communication, enabling them to connect with their teams and target market audiences more effectively. I am a social entrepreneur that mentor young people by working with community partners that select high school interns to work with local companies. I want you to prepare yourself because we will discuss common roadblocks that distract us from becoming our best. This is day 1 of the 3-day challenge, and today we will answer the question, what is holding you back? The first thing we're going to do is identify the barriers, roadblocks, barriers. You know, when you make a plan, a goal, they always say make them SMART goals. So one of the things in making SMART goals, you need to identify what are your roadblocks. And I guess this is when we say what's holding you back from success, I'm asking you, what are your weaknesses? What are the roadblocks? What are the things that you can control, not what other people can control, are holding you back? What things you can control that are holding you back? See, strong leadership doesn't happen until you first learn how to lead yourself. Personal leadership starts with an internal narrative. Those things that you are telling yourself day after day, your internal dialogue and this messaging that you say day after day affects how others treat you. I know, right? So it's not just affect your personal, how you see yourself, but it affects how you treat other people. I just am floored when I think about it also affects how others treat us. Because when I go into the doctor's office, I want to look confident. I do, because I felt like I wasn't always getting the best treatment. And my children, that was the part that really hurt. They weren't getting the best treatment. So I had made a commitment that I will look like I care when I go into the doctor's office, because if I look like I don't care, they may just treat me and my children like they don't care either. So that's what I mean when I say even how we see ourselves affect how others see us as well, right? So we're going to talk about the internal dialogue, not just the people who do not know the job or their responsibilities. It's not going to just address that. It's going to address people who are very competent at their job. In fact, they're excellent. And we're talking about how this internal dialogue affects confidence, and it affects how you see your future. All right. So your internal dialogue, I'm going to review that again, affects how you see and treat others, as well as how you treat yourself. And it affects how others treat you. It affects your confidence level, and it affects how you see the future. Everyone is affected by it. Everyone. All right. So today we're going to talk about how we can gain clarity and fight the internal narrative that's holding us back. Have you ever stopped yourself from speaking up? I have. Have you ever waited because you didn't trust yourself and maybe time ran out on something important? Yes, that's been me too. Well, if you feel like you want to share, put yes in the comment section because I'm going to tell you the truth. At some point, that's been all of us, not just me, not just you. But at some point, we're all going to feel, maybe I shouldn't say that right now. And sometimes self-editing is appropriate and diplomatic, but to do it too often, that's the red flag that we'll talk about today and how to solve it. Let me take a moment to explain confidence. You can be confident in some things and insecure in others. Let me give you an example. I have 7 younger siblings. I noticed that they were the most adorable little people when they were 7 and 8 years old. Every single one of them were beautiful, but none of them were able to get a job that would pay the mortgage at the age of 7. It's against the law, right? 7-year-olds can't work, or you can give them small responsibilities. But wouldn't it be crazy if we looked at a 7-year-old and said to them, you have confidence, now go out there and get a job and support the family? No, that would be crazy, right? Because they won't be able to do that. It's just not age appropriate. I'm just trying to tell you that you could be confident in some things and not so confident or competent in others. And sometimes that's how it's supposed to be, right? But as you get older, you'll see that that still holds true. There'll be things, if you are a nurse, you're not going to go into the emergency room and say, I'm fully confident. I've assisted the doctor several times, and now I can go ahead and operate on this person. I can operate. I've seen it done plenty of times. It's not the same skill level, right? And it requires a different preparation. So we can't always do somebody else's job. That's how I explain it. That's somebody else's job. Now, when I was younger, I was tempted to do somebody else's job. And I noticed that when I was challenged, I answered differently than some people may have that were my age. Because I remember when I was about 8 years old, like I was saying, my siblings, I remember when I was 8 years old. And I remember a lot of young people saying they can't wait until they become adults. And I would respond, an adult? I mean, really, that's a lot of responsibility. You're not ready for that. When the time come, I would say, that's when I'll do it. And one time, someone challenged me to take things more seriously. And I answered, I am a child. I don't want to hear that. I walked away from things that were not mine to carry. I realized I wasn't able to carry adult responsibilities at that time, at the age of 8. And my confidence was in my ability to discern that I'm just 8 years old. That's where my confidence was. And that was enough. So confidence isn't just this blank thing that say just because you tell somebody I can't do something that is relevant, then you're not confident. That's not what I'm saying. We can't blanket things like confidence as if it's a personality trait, right? It could be a part of our personality, but it's not this blanket that we cover with everything. Confidence, it's like, it's not so much in things that can waver, right? It's over time you build it like a muscle. Yeah. Confidence is like a muscle. When you do things in a way that's efficient, on time, or punctual, whenever you get these favorable results, favorable in that maybe it made you more money, favorable, it got you more um, influence, it gave you more influence, favorable in that it gave you prestige, or you were able to move up in some way or another, that built that muscle of confidence. I always define confidence as having success over a period of time. Then the confidence increases, right? So, like a muscle, sometimes you're going to mess up. I'm not talking about mess up in the weight room. You don't want to tear a muscle and injure yourself. But exercising itself does create micro injuries, like small tears, right? And then they mend when you're doing weight training. Um, the mending process makes the muscle even stronger. So that's why you have the soreness for a couple of days after you do weight training. So you don't want to overdo it, right? Too much, then you will tear something and need corrective surgery. We want to avoid that, or a process of waiting where you can't do anything until the mend happens. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to build. All right. So today we're talking about how do we build confidence? How do we because confidence is so key when it comes to speaking up for ourselves. When it to confidence is essential in success, not because we're having a relying, not because we're relying on our ability to control everything. No, that's not what we're saying confidence is. Confidence is when we can look at what we can control and say, I do this well, enough, I'm efficient, I already know I'm competent. But why in the world would someone who's competent still have low self esteem? That's the question, right? Why will they still perform as if they don't have the confidence? And that's what we're exploring today. In fact, I should call this section the miseducation of confidence. I'm not trying to focus on confidence itself as much as I'm trying to show you that there are many other feelings and memories that get in the way of success. Now, some people are overly confident. This is called arrogance. Arrogance because even flaws are brushed over with a blanket of confidence. They're just confident. And I don't see this as confidence. Arrogance reflects low self esteem because you're trying to prove to yourself and to others that you are fully capable. So we don't want to be arrogant, but we do want to be assertive, right? We don't want to be arrogant, but we do want confidence. Again, arrogance is when you're trying to prove to yourself and others that you're capable. You don't have to prove yourself. That's the point I'm making. Why you have to prove yourself? Stop it. So confidence is not the personality, but a reflection of an internal narrative. It's what you tell yourself over and over that affects your confidence. Our thoughts build on a story we have been told, or a story that we have learned ourselves, or a story that we are currently telling ourselves. So we've seen it, someone's told it to us, or it's just something that we're building right now, that narrative. We have feelings of anger. We have feelings of sadness, of loneliness, happiness, and even joy. Excitement is a feeling. Loneliness is a feeling. So, how do our thoughts get in the way? When we begin to think a story about ourselves because we're angry or because we're feeling lonely. Confidence is the same. It is a narrative based on something. that happened in our past, right? So just like when we're angry and when I was growing up, I'd get so angry when I was in a fight, I would say things or do things that later I was like, wow, I kind of took it too far. I would go too far in that anger. And I thought I could never get angry. See, this is the story I'm telling myself. I can never get angry because I'm going to hurt somebody. I'm going to do something I regret later. And the narrative I gave myself was an incorrect narrative. I just hadn't learned the skills on how to diffuse the anger yet, right? I didn't know how to cope with the stress at different levels that would rise to different levels. So I gave myself a story. I'd say I can't do it. Well, with confidence, it's like that. That's what I mean when I say confidence is the same. We tell ourselves a story about confidence, right? And sometimes we tell ourselves the wrong narrative. I think about when I was in high school, I always saw the young men trying to prove their manliness by showing they could get the girls' numbers or uh, just seeing how many people would swoon over them when they walked down the hallway. And I never thought that was a thing, right? And I never thought about it too much at that age. I just thought that wasn't my thing. I wasn't into that showiness of this is how I show I'm confident because I saw young ladies doing the same. If I'm prettier than this person, if I could do this better than this person, then yeah. And I still never thought that was a sign of confidence. I just thought, that was them trying to prove to others and to themselves that they're competent, that they're capable. And I just made sure that I knew who I was. And that's why we're here today, because you need to know who you are. When you look in the mirror, I want you to really see you because that's part of a realistic goal. You have to acknowledge that there are weaknesses, there are strengths. And today we're looking at what's holding you back. So we have to remember that the internal narrative affects the negative and the positive. See, when I was 5 years old, and that was a long time ago, my mother was very fashionable and creative. She would find unique items in on on when I was 5 years old, she found a hat. And my mother made me wear this hat, okay? I was 5 years old. I attended kindergarten on base. My father was in the military, and where we were stationed, it was very cold, right? And so my mother, she made me wear this colorful hat. Yes, she crowned my head with a hat of many colors. And when I walked into the school, a lot of the kids laughed at me. The kids were pointing and laughing and saying, "Look at that girl with the colorful hat." And when I got home, I said, "Ma, I'm never going to wear this hat again." All the kids were laughing at me. She replied, "They're just jealous." And when she said that, I felt so much better. In fact, every time a child would laugh at me from that point on, middle school or high school, I'd look at them and I'd say, "You're just jealous." Now, I was confident because my mother said I looked perfectly fine in that hat. And I knew I could trust her, right? I could trust my mother because she didn't believe in faking anything. She was very transparent and she raised me to be the same. My mother proved to me that I could trust her judgment. And even if I couldn't trust my own judgment at that time, I knew I could trust her. And that experience gave me a sense of self. I now appreciate people being different because it takes confidence. It takes courage to have your own opinion about something. It takes something special and it takes clarity. See, my mom provided that for me. Another blocker that I wanted to identify today is fear. Fear is being wrong. Fear of being wrong. That's a confidence blocker. Fear of being judged. That blocks confidence. Fear of being exposed is also a blocker. Now, doubting yourself is an unexamined fear. All right. So I'm not saying that you're petrified. I'm not saying you're terrified. I'm not saying that you just paralyzed by fear. No, no, I'm not saying any of those things. I'm just trying to say that doubt happens to us all. But what do we do when we encounter doubt? That's the question we're facing here. See, doubting yourself is an unexamined fear. It leaks confidence, right? It punches holes in our confidence. It'll punch a hole in our confidence. But we can't let it, but that's easier said than done. I mean, there will be times when you won't know. But can I tell you this? It's okay to have those moments. It's okay that things aren't perfect. And let me tell you another essential essential lesson that I've learned, that avoiding feelings of inadequacy or shame, avoiding embarrassment, whenever I tried to avoid it, I only made the process longer, that I'd have to endure more pain later. It's not worth it. What I'm trying to say is walking in the truth is, it might hurt immediately. Everything is now in front of you, in your face. But truth, there's always freedom in that, right? I'm not saying be the person who can't hold water. I'm not saying that you go and tell your business everywhere. I'm saying that you just got to be, at least come to a point where you can release the doubt somewhere in your journal, maybe. That's where I release my doubts. I don't go around saying, I doubt, I doubt, I doubt. No, no, I don't do that, because I know it's human to doubt. It's human to experience some type of challenge, but I can't let it immobilize me. I can't let it cause punctures in confidence. So I find a way to address fear. And that's what I'm saying. How do we address fear? And they say straight on, right? So what they mean by that is by acknowledging that there is something that you don't feel comfortable with. What is that thing? So fear leaks confidence, or cause confidence leaks. Avoiding difficult conversations, waiting for validation. These unexamined fears are the things I hope that you will be able to address starting tonight. Now, we will start to examine some of the confidence blockers. Avoiding difficult conversations is an unexamined fear. Let's continue to examine these confidence blockers. Waiting for validation is an unexamined fear. Now, I was telling you that low self-esteem is not always obvious. It does not always show up as someone doubting themselves. Sometimes it hides behind high standards. It can look like achievement on the outside and unrest on the end, feel like unrest on the inside, right? It could look like you can paint this picture of perfection. And then next thing you know, you could feel the pain of the doubt or the unknowingness. Okay. So that's what I mean by it could look one way, but feel different on the inside. That still can be fear that you're dealing with. So now we are identifying the feelings. We're identifying some of the things that we do to cover a low self esteem, right? And I must share a firsthand example of hiding behind standards because that I've done this thing. I'm telling you from experience, and I must share this firsthand example of how I have hid behind high standards. See, there have been times where I accomplished a goal. Once I reached the goal, I moved the standard to make a higher goal without celebrating my current win. See, I'd say, I'm trying to think of a current, a relevant example because when I was in high school, my goal would be to, I remember, had this goal. I wanted to be Miss Universe. And when I was in high school, I begged my mom, please, mommy, please let me participate in Miss Teen USA. I'm 16 years old and I'm ready. And I remember her saying no. And I started doing pageants around 15. So I had been doing pageants for about a year. I had a little bit of success. So I continued doing pageants, hoping my mother could change her mind or something would open up for me. And my school pageants were fun. I would win and then I'd put the little trophy over in the corner because my real goal was to be Miss Universe, right? So instead of really celebrating the win, I felt good. I was happy. Of course I was happy, but I wouldn't really be in the moment. I just put it to the corner. And when they'd ask me to come to judge another pageant or to be or to do something to acknowledge my win, I would halfway do it or show up thinking this is, nothing, not realizing it was a great opportunity. It was a great accomplishment. And I did the same with my grades. I wanted to be a high school scholar. And that was a new program in the state where I was residing. And I was one of the first graduating class for this program. It was difficult because being the first graduating class for this program, we didn't have the classes present for us to successfully complete the program. And I made sure that that changed. I spearheaded the whole thing. Every quarter, I went to the principal. I mean, excuse me, not the principal, but our counselor, looked over what classes were going to be offered next and to see how we could make sure those classes needed to be a high school scholar, they were in place because this was a state program. They changed the classes. They made sure that they were being offered. And so sometimes the classes were mixed with different grades because this is the first class to ever graduate. So we were in classes with undergraduates who were also participating just so that we could make sure we had all the credentialing to graduate with this special honor. And that last year of my college, of my high school experience, I took AP Calculus. And for some reason, the teacher, she hated me. I know a teacher hating a student, but in this case, it was real. And I wanted to be a high school scholar. All these years, I always made the honor roll. I thought nothing of it. I didn't have anybody to attend the honor roll uh, programs. My mom, she didn't come out, and I didn't think nothing of that. I didn't care. I just wanted them to see me on the stage when I graduated from high school. And this one teacher, she literally wouldn't give me a chance. She tried to warn me a year or two before that class that she didn't want me in the class, in her class, but I dismissed it. And I just pushed along and I thought, no, we're friends. But sometimes people are going to not like you. And that I had to grow to understand and accept. It's just I had to start to learn it at a pretty young age. Because in high school, I thought everyone wanted to know who I was because I'm a child growing up trying to make something of myself. But there was a person, for the same reason that people loved me was the same reason she did not like me. And so when I achieved the goals that I achieved, which is honor roll every quarter, um, being a part of the club, full ride to college, scholarships everywhere coming at me. But I just wanted that one goal, right? So I was not embracing all the monies, all the offers, every college I applied to, I got accepted to. I just took it all for granted because I wanted that one thing. And when it was time to graduate, I sat by my peer in the general audience, graduating number 3 of my class, and still I felt it wasn't enough. And that's why I say that this is the miseducation of confidence, right? Because I had all the confidence I needed to succeed, but there was still something inside of me that felt off, that pushed me where I couldn't enjoy the simple pleasure of all that I had accomplished. Just to celebrate the wins, all the wins that I was encountering because I just wanted that one goal. So tonight we're going to talk about what I could have done differently and what I've learned so that those things won't be a problem anymore. See? Perfect on the outside, but feel an unrest on the inside. So I just wanted to tell you what it's like to move the line. There have been times that I accomplished a goal. Once I reached it, I just moved the standard to make a higher goal without celebrating the current win. I would move the line and make a new goal. I did not see it as doubting myself because I just didn't. I didn't see not enjoying a win as doubting myself. I always felt that there was a threat that I had to stay on top of everything. And now I am seeing that feeling of there always being a threat or that everything will fall apart if I don't stay on top of it. That is doubting myself. I don't want to doubt myself any longer. So now I ask myself these questions. What do I need right now? Is there something I need to give myself maybe? Maybe I just need a hug, you know, give myself a hug, just comfort myself. And that's when they say self-care is not selfish because sometimes you give and you do so much, but you never stop to appreciate and take care of the things that keep you going. Refuel yourself. So you got to ask yourself, do I need respect right now? Do I need comfort? Do I need clarity? So I was an overachiever. Now, overachieving can be a person that is excellent at what they do. or it can be us feeling a need to prove our worth. And to prove your worth, it doesn't matter whether you're competent or not. You could have proved that you're competent, but you still feel that need. You have to prove it, right? Having to prove your worth again and again and again is a result of not understanding that just being you is enough. Now, over the next 3 days, with the 3-day challenge, we will talk about the myths and the behavior alignments, meaning when we're misaligned, we can always go back to asking ourselves these questions. Okay. When we're misaligned, meaning you see things are looking good on the outside, but we feel an unrest on the inside, we need to ask ourselves, what do I need right now? Do I need respect? Do I need comfort? Do I need clarity? I'll give you another example. And this is relevant because I know we're hard workers, especially when we know we have leadership potential and abilities. So instead of resting, I would tell myself, let me get better. Let me work harder. So in the time that I have free, I'll start these self-improvement things, projects, learn something, pick up a course here or there because I wanted to get better. So at the core of that struggle was still a low self-esteem, because low self-esteem often sounds like, am I working hard enough? It sounds like, do I need to do more? We ask ourselves these questions. And so I wanted to get this straight. Just because I'm talking about low self-esteem and confidence, I'm not turning myself into a therapist. This is not a therapy session. But I'm telling you about things that are roadblocks to our success. Sometimes we may need help to overcome some of these, but often we could just journal and that's enough. I can't tell you what would help, but I do know facing whatever challenges that we encounter, because we're going to encounter challenges. Just human. You're just human. It's just the human thing to do, is to have challenges. I mean, that's just human. So instead of resting, you saw what I did, but I have to ask you, do you ask yourself, or do you allow yourself to rest? I can't diagnose you, and I'm not saying that this is an answer to all things, but I am saying that a lot of times we cover up the truth with work, or we feel we need to do more. We cover up the truth by doing more. We cover up the truth by feeling that we need to earn more to prove we are making it, or we're doing something deserving of attention, or deserving even of love. See, it has nothing to do with competence. It has everything to do with the uncertainty that we have inside. So when worth feels conditional, when your worth starts to feel conditional, confidence becomes fragile. When you have to guess your worth in the eyes of whoever, yes, confidence becomes fragile. You may have it and be fully competent, but you begin to doubt yourself because you felt like this person didn't understand your worth. So we're trying to address these blockers. When worth feels conditional, we go into performance mode. Performance becomes the thing we slip into. Now, a win makes you feel good briefly, but our mistakes, when we make a mistake here or there, we then forget about the win And then that mistake is the thing in front of us that we constantly thinking about. It becomes so heavy that the wind carries no weight any longer. And that's not how it's supposed to be, because everyone will make a mistake sometime. That's human. So not only will you have challenges, but you will also make mistakes at times. And it's okay. You need to give yourself that grace and have the wisdom to know this is normal. Let's move forward from here. Let's learn from the mistake so we won't repeat it. Let's learn from the mistake so we can help someone else who may encounter that same challenge. Or let's just learn from the mistake so that we can be a better version of ourselves as we move forward. So we start thinking that it defines something about us as a person when we make a mistake. That's why it becomes so heavy. That's why it becomes so big, because we think that defines us. So instead of leading from a stable identity, we begin to lead from proof. I'll prove to you. I still got to prove to you. And every action feel like it has to be validated or justified, or a value justified. So we want to change that, right? Over time, we will change that, because over time, the pressure of that becomes exhausting. So you don't want to stay under that. If you keep that, it'll build and build and build and build. And you're never going to be your best when you have that much stress on you, right? Stress from exhaustion, of you overthinking your mistakes. It diminishes other things that are great about you. You have a higher level of stress when you're doing that. Sickness even enters the picture when you have that much weight on you. So it's safe to say that always doubting, or not even doubting, but needing that validation, it causes you to even lose motivation over time. You don't have to prove yourself, and you don't have to prove that you deserve to be loved. You don't have to prove that you deserve respect. You don't have to prove that you deserve to be treated with dignity. Just know you do. And we all deserve to be treated with dignity. See, true confidence grows when your worth is stable, not when it is constantly being earned. All right. So that is the first blocker, fear, right? The second one that we're talking about tonight is using your voice. Voice is more than the act of speaking. Okay. I'm not talking about the physical act of speaking. It is the ability to express what you truly think about something without shrinking. Now, many people speak out, project, but yet they silence some parts of what that's inside. They don't always share their real feelings about things, because they think they might lose the audience or lose the favor of a person or a group of people. So something that's an injustice, they might remain silent about that, but speak audibly and loudly about other things, right? Because the majority, they're going with whatever the injustice is. So when I say using your voice, I'm talking about truly sharing about things that need to be addressed. I asked a question earlier. I said, how many people just wouldn't say something? They would hold it in, or talk themselves from sharing it. talk themselves out of sharing some things. Well, that's what I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about when you're supposed to speak up, you still choose not to. It's about the essence of who you are. Like, for instance, bullying. We all know bullying is wrong. Something you learn in elementary school. Now, when someone is being bullied, it's not the person who's being bullied that's always the victim, but the people who are watching the bullying, they're also victims. And we never address those people who saw someone abused. We never address how that affects the person watching because they're helpless, right? They may feel helpless, like they didn't say anything when they should have, but they didn't want to have all that pushed on them. They didn't want to be beaten down or broken, like they're watching this other person become beaten down and broken. We're watching someone get hurt, but yet we don't want to be the one hurt. I understand that. That emotional turmoil of being bullied, that is another level. I understand it because I've been bullied plenty of times. Being the new girl, being that my family's military, moving around, moving around. I remember when I was in fifth grade, I'm going to a new school in the inner city. And the first day I'm tested, someone challenges me and tells me, orders me, commands they gave me a command, sharpen my pencil. And I looked at them, something so easy, but yet I saw the nature. And I saw that this person, if I sharpen her pencil, then she's going to ask me to do something else to prove that I belong. And then something else, and then something else. And I felt like that's going to betray who I am because I really like who I am. I didn't have to prove I belonged. I didn't have to prove I deserved her respect. I just knew I did. And so I said to her, no. And that year, she made it very difficult for me. I mean, not because she fought me. No, I thought, I'm a pretty big person, not just in my personality, but in stature. So I guess that can be intimidating. But that wasn't why I said no. I said no because, like I said, I felt like I was a person that deserved to be treated as an equal, a student. All of us were fifth graders, and all of us wanted to learn, grow, and to become the best versions of ourselves. And so she made it difficult because she turned the class against me. She told everybody not to talk with me. And so they listened, most of them. Yet there was a saving grace. I had a math class with a different fifth grade class. And in the other fifth grade class, they absolutely adored me too. They liked me as a person. They enjoyed my personality, and we had fun, we laughed, we joked, and then I'd have to go back to my class. But I didn't dread it. It didn't change my experience. Yes, I had challenges, a lot of challenges, just growing pains. But I also had a lot of wonderful moments, being that I understood there are people who will like me, and then there are kids who won't. Later, I saw that young lady, that same little girl grew up and we were grown young women, living our lives. She saw me one day. She called me by my name and she said, "It's me." Like we were good friends back then, right? But I had no real enemies. My mom always said I never met an enemy. I always meet friends. And she's right, because I really didn't have anything against her. Sometimes hurt people hurt people. And like I said before, arrogance is a reflection of low self-esteem. Had nothing to do with me, that pain. She tried to make it all about me, but it wasn't. And I realized even back then. So I learned then to speak up for myself. I learned then, honest, in fifth grade, how to advocate for myself. That was a learning experience. I'm glad I learned it early because I needed it. I needed it as I moved forward. In middle school, they would ask me what kind of classes I wanted in high school. I remember telling them I wanted that AP route. They told me, I don't think you can do it. I said, look, I know me. If you give me mediocre work, I'll give you mediocre back. But if you challenge me, I know I'll rise to the occasion. They said, okay, full of doubt. And yet I went to school with people who they thought was more than able. And those people, they graduated still in the top 10, but it felt so good that I was the one that they said couldn't make it, couldn't do it. And I graduated at number 3 in the class. So I learned how to advocate in 5th grade, standing up to a bully, knowing that I did deserve respect. Standing up to an adult, had to learn how to do that with that teacher. I learned that seeking help, asking an adult for help, that's one way. I learned that we have advocates for us and we don't have to fight things alone. I had to learn that, but that too took time. So these are examples of learning how to advocate for yourself, learning how to speak up, how to use your voice. So we talked about being a victim to bullying. On your job, you're going to have to learn how to advocate for yourself. And as a leader, you must learn that it's important that we advocate for others. Speak up when there's an injustice. Fear is real. Like I said, we all will encounter it. We all will in different forms, but we can't let it paralyze us. The best way to handle it is to face it, right? Now, I'm not saying we use our voice in the wrong way. And there is a wrong way. When I was in college, there was a situation where my husband and his brother, we attended Howard University, and it's in the heart of Washington, D.C. And at one of the corner stores in a neighboring community, my husband and his brother visited outside of the university campus. And so being in the inner city, you're going to have spots that it may be dark. That's normal, right? That's city life. And him and his brother was in one of these establishments, and a situation brewed. A young lady started to be mishandled by a person she knew. And the person was going back and forth, but then he got physical with her. Like, I don't know how physical, but I know that my brother-in-law said, leave her alone, and confronted the young men, because it was more than one, it was 3 of them, with this young lady. And when he said leave him alone, they said, what? And they questioned him. And he said, I say leave her alone. And I guess they gave him an out, but he didn't want to take it. And then they took a bottle and smashed it over his head. He needed stitches. So he went to the emergency room and he was stitched up, and then they gave him a lesson on how to handle situations, stranger danger, what it means when you're in a community you're not familiar with, you don't know these people. Even if you did know people, when you're angry and you're in the midst of an angry person, it's hard to talk to an angry person, right? Because I share all the time how we need to use our frontal lobe, which is where we think. But most of the time, when you're talking to an angry person, they're functioning from the amygdala, the survival mode, not where they're cognitively engaging and processing things, but survival, fight or flight. So when my brother-in-law chose to challenge the young men, they were there in the fight or flight, right? Functioning from the amygdala. So they fought. And they taught my brother-in-law and a lot of other students that when we see a situation where someone's in danger, yell out from across the way, far, where then you wouldn't be putting yourself in danger as well. I had an opportunity around the same period of time. And I didn't know my brother-in-law like that at that time. I met him later, but I too learned how to advocate for others, being that I have so many brothers and sisters, right? So one day I was on the shuttle bus going back to my dorm, and I saw also a young lady and a young man having a confrontation on the side street. And I yelled from the bus, "Leave that woman alone." Again, I made sure I was far away, stranger danger. I wasn't going to go in the situation. I knew that was an unstable situation, but I did want to advocate. And so I just wanted, if they knew someone saw them, then they'd stop and just try to get themselves together. That's what I was hoping would happen. And so that's what I mean when I say there, use wisdom. Okay. I'm not telling you that every fight is yours to fight. I am saying that calling 911 is an option, you know, or getting to safety and making sure you alert someone that there's a problem. I love what the culture is doing too now. People are standing still far off and they're now recording it, so that there's evidence and proof. I remember in the 90s, um, why can't we all get along? You remember that saying, and it was, you know, a man being beaten in the street by authorities, and it was because someone videoed it from across the way. I guess they didn't know they were being videoed, and that tape surfaced during the court hearing of the authorities misusing power. But yet, justice, there was justice. I used to doubt it. Is it really? But I want to tell you, there is justice. Don't give up hope thinking nothing will change. That too is a belief we have to dismiss, because hope tells us things can change. Things can change in your life, and things can change in the lives of others. See, that's why we're here today, because you actually said you wanted a change. And this is the best way to start, by investing time in yourself. I wanted to quickly touch on the third one. We talked about your voice, but let's quickly talk about the third and the final barrier, because I promised an hour and I'm just slightly over my hour. But the third confidence blocker is perfection paralysis. The third confidence blocker of perfection paralysis. I always tell people that perfection is the enemy of done. And it really is. I used to be a perfectionist. Now, the reasons behind why I was a perfectionist has a lot to do with my upbringing. Like I said, this is not a therapy session, but I want us to face the blockers that would stop us from actually having the success we need or want in life. Now, being a perfectionist or having perfection, that's a hard road. From research, from the studies, they have found that it is hard for people to sit with discomfort. So if everything's perfect, then you feel like I won't have to deal with discomfort. So I'd always give my best and go above the call of duty, right? I go all above standard. I didn't want anyone to correct me. And that was a problem I had with pride. I had that. I struggled with pride. I had a problem with taking criticism. And to avoid it, I thought I didn't want to avoid it, I'll get everything right so that no one would have to tell me what I got wrong. That's what I would tell myself. So I'd over prepare. I put more time into preparation so that I could make sure I knew everything I needed to do to get it right. I overthought things. And I'm telling you from personal experience because I didn't want you to think I was reading the studies to you. I learned how to overcome that challenge of perfectionism. And I still challenge myself when it comes to encountering discomfort or sitting with discomfort. I've learned that it's okay to have uncomfortable situations. And I've learned that, in fact, to be challenged is a good thing. I mean, I'm surrounding myself with people who do not think like me. I should embrace that because in order for me to be the best version of myself, I need more people. I need community. And community is what makes us better. Because a community provides accountability. We will never know everything in and of ourselves. You know, my teacher in high school used to say, you can be a master of one thing or a jack of all. And she said, but you can't be a master of all things. It's just impossible. And at first I thought, I'm going to be a master of all things. I wanted to prove her wrong. But I grew up and I realized she was right. I wanted to be a master. And in order to be a master of anything, I needed to focus on one thing. So, what I'm saying to you is, I'm not saying don't shoot for excellence. Shoot for excellence. That's different. Perfection is, like I said, when you're overthinking, overdoing. Now, to do your best, that's shooting for excellence. Correcting what's wrong, that's shooting for excellence. But half stepping, that's never okay. That's what. So don't go to the extreme of giving just enough, doing just enough. That's never really okay to me. Ever, ever. And there'll be times when you're not called to carry things that you carry, that you've put on your shoulders. In those things, you're not even supposed to be there, probably. Helping Jim with his homework, and yet you're left with the science project, and you got Jim's science project and your science project. That's not your weight to carry. That's Jim's weight to carry. You can help Jim where you can, but his project is his responsibility, just like yours is your responsibility. I shared with you earlier that I stopped carrying things that wasn't mine to carry. When I was 8 years old, no, I didn't want to be grown. I was 8 years old. I'm a kid, I'd say. And even when you're in high school, There are things you want to be nice, but some of that is not yours to carry, and you have to let it go. So remember tonight's topic of what are the things holding you back. We talked about fear and different forms of fear. We talked about different things that affect our confidence. But confidence really wasn't the focus. It's just the fact that we all have feelings. What's most important here is the internal dialogue we tell ourselves when we face discomfort or when we face these things, challenges. I want you to know that you can turn the dialogue around. In day 2, we'll talk about how to turn that dialogue around. So come back to find out what can you do to correct the things that you've been doing wrong. All right? So join me tomorrow at 7 for day 2 of the 3-day leadership challenge. Thank you so much for taking this time to invest in yourself. I'll see you soon.